I woke up this morning to a half a dozen different friends having emailed me this article, and there were accompanying expressions of shock. That's the only word I can really think of to use here is shock. Mike Isikoff is a Pulitzer Prize winning investigative journalist. He's worked at the biggest, most important, best funded news outlets in America. The guy's a serious journalist. And, for Mike Isikoff to say something as definitive as the CIA was trying to murder Julian Assange or to capture Julian Assange, and then to go into detail of exactly how they were planning to do that, you have to take that very seriously. He interviews more than 30 current and former CIA officers and former administration officials who were privy to this information. It's so well sourced, 99% of it. It's so well covered that I have to believe it. We know that the CIA was obsessed, that Pompeo specifically was obsessed with Julian Assange and WikiLeaks because of the Vault 7 revelations. That was akin to the crown jewels of the mid 1970s being released. And by God, Pompeo and Gina Haspel were determined to put an end to Julian Assange and to put an end to WikiLeaks. So it wasn't just these insane plans to murder Assange, but there were accompanying plans to infiltrate and to neutralize WikiLeaks as an organization. And Isikoff says in the article that the CIA had some success in infiltrating WikiLeaks, in collecting information from inside the organization, in determining WikiLeaks' future plans and intentions. They really targeted WikiLeaks directly and went after WikiLeaks. So disruption is the easy part. Collection against WikiLeaks is the easy part. I'm stuck on this murder plot. This is just so. If I were still at the CIA, if this were 2004, and somebody said, "Oh, listen, we're gonna plan to murder this Australian national because he keeps publishing our stuff and we don't like his politics," that would have been like a bad joke. I mean, I don't even know anybody in 2004 who would have said words like that out loud. It's just so outrageous. And now, we read it and we say, wow, CIA, they were pretty mad, but this is what they do. They have to go after WikiLeaks. No, this whole thing bothers me. There were a couple of revelations in this piece, Kevin, that were very, very disturbing to me, to the point where I'm having trouble wrapping my brain around it. For example, they talked about the possibility of having to engage in a shootout in the streets of London outside the Ecuadorian embassy. They talked about the possibility of shooting the tires out of a Russian diplomatic plane so it couldn't lift off from an airport outside London if Julian Assange had been on the plane. Okay, these are acts of war. You can't do things like this. And then, almost as an aside, Isikoff says, the British agreed that they would be the ones doing the shooting. Well, that doesn't make it any less of an act of war. If Julian Assange had been released, for example, and if he had been granted asylum in Russia, and if the Russians had sent a plane to pick him up, that is a diplomatic vehicle, right? It has all the same diplomatic protections that an embassy would, or an embassy car would. You can't shoot the tires out. That is like firing a rocket at the Russian mainland. You just can't do things like that. But apparently, Mike Pompeo was so obsessed with taking down Julian Assange that that's exactly what they were planning to do. Now, there is a way at the CIA that you go about doing something like this. First of all, you have to declare a person a clear and present danger to the United States. It appears that that's what they did with Julian. They said he is a clear and present danger to the safety and security of the United States, and as such, he has to be executed. but he's an Australian national. He's an Australian national, and Australia is one of the Five Eyes countries. And so the United States would have had to bring the Australians in on the operation. They would have had to have Australian permission to go ahead and murder an Australian national. There's no paragraph saying the Australians said, "Now, Pompeo, wait a minute. He's an Australian national, and while we don't like him either, you can't kill an Australian national." We didn't see any of that. So what are we supposed to conclude? That the U.S. did not inform Australia, or that the Australians were in on it? Now, it says in the article that the British certainly were in on it, that the British were the ones who agreed to shoot out the Russian planes, or to carry out the gun battle that would have taken place in front of the Ecuadorian embassy. Does that mean Australia has changed too? And the Australians were willing to allow the British and the Americans to conspire to murder one of their nationals? So, number one, you've got to get permission from the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel. It appears that they got that. Number two, you would have to get the agreement of the Australian government. It appears that they got that too. Number three, and this is one that sort of makes me want to swallow my tongue, you have to get the approval of the congressional oversight committees. Now, if they were serious about this operation and the planning for the operation went as far as it did, that means that they got the permission of the oversight committees. I complain a lot in a lot of interviews that the oversight committees are little more than cheerleaders for the CIA. And they've been little more than cheerleaders for the CIA since the 1990s. But this is ridiculous. This is murder. Murder of an Australian national. Murder of somebody who has never been convicted in a U.S. court of committing any crime. In fact, the British courts deemed the accusation of his crime as not even worthy of extradition. So, the revelations in this article, if they're even half true, and like I say, he interviewed something like 30 former CIA people and administration officials, we have to believe him. I mean, this is just over the top.
The fact that they were talking about killing him, but then also seriously considering a rendition operation against an editor, a publisher of a media organization.
This is insane. Shooting out the tires of a Russian diplomatic flight that would have, taken him into exile in Russia. You can't do that. You might as well shoot the plane down out of the sky. It's an act of war. You can't do it. We see these cute little scenes on Law and Order where they trick this Iranian diplomatic car into opening its doors and they grab the guy out of the diplomatic car. That doesn't happen in real life. You can't do that, because then what's going to happen if the Russians decide to shoot out the tires of an American diplomatic plane, or to violate American diplomatic sovereignty, maybe go into a classified diplomatic pouch? You can't do things like that. So the fact that it went all the way to the president, wow, I don't even have words.
So yeah, I mean, when you add in the FBI's informant, and you add in what the CIA's conduct is in this, and then also I should mention the FBI stole Julian Assange's legally privileged materials. We know that he confiscated their all that together. There is no reason why this case should still be going.
No. Any criminal defense attorney of any repute at all should be able to pick this case apart in a day. The government's entire case is based on a convicted pedophile's lies. Now, for whatever reason, he confessed to an Icelandic journalist that he lied about his access to Julian Assange. He lied about his position in WikiLeaks. He embezzled money from WikiLeaks and then went on to molest young boys and was convicted of pedophilia. And that's their star witness.